9-year-old Hannah Osborne is a bright, high-spirited little girl. Seeing her today, one could not imagine the ordeal she endured during her battle with one of the most dreaded diseases.
Well, at first we were in and they were looking at it as a brain tumor. Is that where you left off?
Yeah.
So after, I think, a couple of days of them getting an idea of what the tumor was and more details into that, that's when we were introduced into an oncologist, and that's when we were made aware that it was cancer.
We did some initial scans, and there was a very large bony tumor behind her right eye, which we initially thought was her primary tumor. But then we did further scans and realized her primary tumor, or primary cancer, was a cancer known as neuroblastoma.
Being a parent of a child who's just diagnosed with cancer, you almost immediately think that it's a life sentence. When they came out and said it was stage 4, they said, you know, this is basically as advanced as it gets. You know, she's very far into this. She had 2 large tumors. One was in her belly, one was in her head, and that was how Amy had originally picked up on the swelling of her eye, because the tumor that was in her head was actually pushing her eye out and pushing her brain back.
And what we do for this tumor, because the prognosis is so bad, is we actually give these kids a very massive dose of chemotherapy, followed by what we call a stem cell rescue. Sort of like a bone marrow transplant. We give them so much chemotherapy, it kills off their bone marrow, so we collected Hannah's bone marrow ahead of time. And then after, to help her recover from this massive dose of chemotherapy, we gave her bone marrow back. And she recovered from that very well. This unfortunately can't be done here, so she went to the Hospital Sick Children in Toronto to have this procedure done. So this tumor includes all 3 types of treatments for cancer: surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy.
And to hear all this coming back and hear how much cancer she actually had in her body, and just to think, okay, how is she ever going to get through this? How are we going to get through the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year? Like, you know, it was so much to take in at one time. And you know, it's with the support of the Janeway and your friends and family that make it possible.
And then after that, she was put on a very new experimental protocol for this tumor. We're just starting it in our children's oncology group, where we found an antibody against these tumor cells. And she was one of the first patient in Newfoundland to be put on this new antibody treatment for this neuroblastoma. And it was very intensive treatment, 6 months. She went from October 2008 right up to February 2009, getting a cycle of chemo every month or so. And she was in hospital a lot, had a lot of difficulty with this treatment. As I said, it was experimental, but she did very well with it. Her prognosis and her outcome is still guarded. She spent a lot of time in hospital over that year of treatment. She was extremely sick. She spent some time in ICU. It was probably our most intensive protocol for any cancer that we treat here. And Hannah, being only less than 2 when she presented, was a trooper right throughout. She tolerated really well. Even in the bad days, she always had a smile on her face. And she kept us going throughout the whole treatment, us and her family. We tell our parents, you know, 5 years out from treatment is when we can fully relax and say you're cured. And we're hoping Hannah Osborne will be one of those children that will be cured.
Amy and I and Hannah, of course, owe so much to the folks at the Janeway. We are so fortunate that we have the availability to such great health care and such great staff that were able to take care of us in such a hard time for our lives.
Give your brother a big kiss.
Hannah Osborne, another Janeway miracle kid.